guys, welcome back to this channel. This is Creativity Incorporated, and I wanted to start our book because I saw the Booksmith where you make a junk journal out of an old book. But what if you don't have an old book, or you might have an old book but not the old book you want or you have in mind? So for me, I wanted to create an old book out of an old book, but I wanted to make an older book. Anyways, so I saw an image of an old book on Instagram, and it kind of has this old faded leather look to it. Although I can use something like this, but this is at the end of the day a leather, a brown jacket with a little bit of black. I wanted to make it black with that it's faded, like the dye on the leather has faded. So I kind of started, and this is kind of where I'm going for. This one's still missing a little bit of sanding, but I wanted to put it on first and then sand the edges and then kind of work from there. But this will be my starting point, and I'm going to show you how to get to this. Now this is, leather. Just a little bit of, I guess, background or my thought is, this is leather, and when I've sanded this, you can sand the black off so that it reveals this. Now, my craft paper is not per se this color, but once I reveal it and sand it, I'm going to spray coffee water on it so that it kind of gets this tint. But once I've revealed it enough with my sanding, and so I started, me being a goofball, didn't measure, and look. It's like shy of maybe 2 inches, but good because I wanted to show you how I did it anyway. So my starting point is this. This comes in a roll, but I fold it because I can store it like this better. Anyway, so it's craft. It's called, this brand is Craft Text, but I guess there's other brands now. This is paper, but it's fabric. But you can paint it like paper, and it feels like paper, but it's also feels like fabric. So it's non-tearable. That means you can beat the living lights out of it. So it works kind of like leather. And a lot of people refer it as faux leather. And I've seen it made out of pineapple, cactus, all kinds of different materials. But I am going to link the link down below for this particular brand in this particular color, because I feel like it resembles kind of what I'm going for with this color. Okay, first step is to break the fibers, and to do that I sand my paper. I use a 220 and I go up and down all the way around. I'm using coffee water and beige paint. It's like an off-white bone color, but I'm painting it very thin, so it's like very watered down. My goal is for the water to be the paint to be so watered down that it's absorbed by the fabric. So not the fabric, the text craft, the material. And I want it to be absorbed into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few times this. I'm going to do this a few times so that it's absorbed. You guys see that it's like almost in there. And that's my goal, because when I sand and I take off the black, I don't want it to look white. I just want it to look old. And sometimes I've seen leather so old that it just loses all its color. And that's where I'm going for. And because I see that in the book, it has this, after the color or the black paint has been stripped off of the leather, it has this like very colorless skin to it, that I really wanted to make sure I capture that in this process. And what I'm doing as I'm painting, I'm also giving it crevices and different textures and different kinds of wearing it out. And so what I'm doing here is on my third time that I'm applying very thick paint. Like my third layer of white, you can't really see it, but I'm applying thick white. So 2 review, I do 2 layers of very, 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 very coffee down. Wait, it's coffee water, but I'm using it as water to water down the page. Yeah, water down or coffee down paint. 2 of those coats, let them dry, let it seep in, and then I'm using very thick white. And this is why I'm going to show you right now. I'm applying a very thick layer of black paint. I don't know if you guys can see. Um, I'm using a ketchup bottle to pour my glue. So, yeah, uh, a very moment for me because I love that that it sits like ready for. I don't have to like wait for the glue to like come into the nibble or the nib, and then pour it. This is a ketchup bottle, people. It sits like this, like really. I don't know. I use so much of this Elmer glue that this was perfect for me, and I mix it into my paint a lot, so perfect. Anywho, same process. I'm doing black with black with gesso and glue, Elmer's glue. I always use, most of the time I use Elmer's glue. And you guys saw the first coat had a lot of glue, and the second coat mostly had black with a little bit of gesso. Just because when you mix glue and gesso into the black, it brings it down, so it's not black anymore. It's almost like a gray. So I gotta make sure I throw in the black in there again because I really want it black. So I'm not even letting the black dry, and I'm doing this. And because that second coat of white was so thick and it's not even dry yet, it's kind of repelling a little bit of the black at the same time that it is, holding on to it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's 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 playing against each other, the thick black, white paint against the black. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just playing with it. Like like I said earlier, I'm just, beating the leaving lights out of it, putting water, taking it off, and checking to how much black I want to take off and how much black I want to leave in. Anyways, I got this robe for $2. I don't know if it's a nightgown or one of those like chorus, or church, chorus gown, but it's the perfect velvet blue I've been looking for. And it was $2. So I'm using a little piece of the sleeve. When I buy these like apparel to use, I always start with the sleeve. I noticed it in this video when I was editing that I always start with the sleeves, and I've done many jackets. If you see been here around, you guys know that I like using old leather jackets, and I always start with the sleeve. Anyways, fun fact. Moving forward, always score your book, even if you think it's cloth and you think it's gonna hold. It won't hold no matter what, especially if you're really planning to use it. Always score just a little bit your cover so that whatever it is you're gluing on or applying on top, um, make sure that it doesn't bubble and it will definitely grab on very good. And pretty much I'm using my silicone to attach both of the covers. I'm not putting it in the spine. I'm only putting it on the front and back cover. Okay, alrighty then. So next step is to apply the the spine. To do that, I sand the material first on the bottom, just to make sure it holds a good bond with each other. Just as how I cross hatch the book. I also if I feel like the material is too hard, I always either sand it or cross hatch it before I glue it together. I make sure it's centered. Usually, it doesn't really matter that much, but because I want it to be at a straight line, supposedly, I'm going to attempt it. At the end, you guys will be the judge. But before I glue the flops of the spine, I'm going to distress it because um, I should have done it before I glued it. But here I am. Um, I don't want it sanded with the velvet because the velvet's very fragile. It's not as durable as this craft text material. And oh, this I am going in with the sander paper before I glue the flops on the edges, just because when you have it with the glue, it's harder to get into that little, on the spine, between the spine and the cover. There's like a little divot, and I wanted to get in there, and it's only possible before um, you glue them together so that you can, like, manipulate the covers to however you want it to do it. Okay, so here comes uh, me applying this. Now at this point, I am applying and gluing like a good girl that I am. No, I'm not a good girl, but um, I decide, I think at some point, to change my mind, and I decide to add those little strips that are on the other book. I guess I took a glance on my picture, on my reference picture, and I noticed it had those little strips on the spine. And after I do this mess of gluing, I unglue everything. But the cool thing about the silicone that I work with, it allows me to do that because this happens to me quite often. And this is how I do it. You know that cutting board, or that cutting, like, little floor sample that I used to cut? Um, I cut a little strip of that because it's thick enough and it's hard enough, and I felt it was like the perfect thing to put there. And I just peeled my spine cover back, and I just inserted it there. What I did is, what I showed you up close was that the tips are cut on a 45 angle, just so that it doesn't look awkward, like where it meets, from when it meets from the spine to the cover. I wanted it to be like a smooth transition, so I put a 45 cut on there so that it doesn't look bulky and it's just a smooth transition. What I'm doing here is I am making sure that my glue goes into all the crevices, and that, because remember, well, I don't know if you know, but this material is kind of thick. It feels like a very thick canvas. If you're familiar with the weight of the canvas, maybe like a 10-ounce canvas. That's how it feels like. So, if you want to work it into the groove, you really have to work the glue, and having it, pressing it down and working it into it, so that it gives you that shape of that spine. Is it ribbon, or I don't know what it would be called. I need to know what the term is. If you know the term of that little ribbon on there, let me know. But this is how I glued it. I had it on there for a while, and it was just, I used the rulers to make sure that all the edges are glued smoothly. You guys have seen me make these over and over. That is why I am not making a video of this, but you guys have seen me make these book corners or book protectors out of a soda can, or any can, and it could be a Red Bull, whatever, just aluminum cans. And I make these. I made mine super big because I like the pizzazz they give when they're like super big. So I if you want to know, I'm gonna put a link down below, or maybe up on the corner of this screen, if I remember to do that. Most likely, I will link it down on the on the comments. But they're pretty easy to make. You really don't need much experience in cutting aluminum. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm distressing the velvet, and I'm adding different colors, and I'm taking away, and I'm adding and taking away, and I probably played with it on screen and off screen. And as you can tell, when I sanded it, it opened it up a little bit. And I don't know if I'm going to do it here, but off screen, I think most likely. I put a little crazy glue there so that it doesn't continue on ripping, and it just has that damage, but not continue, like it doesn't like come off, my book doesn't fall apart, you know what I mean? So I'm containing the damage in a way, sort of, to give that little gold accent on my book. I'm not going to be too much detailed, but I am going to put lines in the middle, and I'm just gonna, as you guys see, I'm kind of eyeballing it But on the bottom and on the top, I write. On the bottom, I make my signature. On the top, I just wrote volume 1. I wanted to further secure my corners, and to do that, I'm going to use eyelets. But there's a problem. The eyelets that I have are too short to go all the way through the aluminum, the velvet, the cover, like book cover, and then the velvet on the back, and then the aluminum, and then the paper. I mean, it's just pretty thick. So I'm doubling it up on the aluminum, on the eyelet. And what I'm doing is the first eyelet that I put, I close the little, I open the eyelid a little bit. Just I put in my screw, my what is it called? My needle nose prior, and I close it just a tight bit so that I can put another one through the back, and it allows it to go in. And so when I pinch it, I crimp it. It crimps the one that goes inside the other one. It's kind of like a glove inside the other. And when I crimp it, it opens the other side, and it holds really good. And it works every time that I've done it. And I've done this before, and I know that they sell taller or longer eyelets. I just haven't found any, and I probably haven't really looked because I have this, and I like that both sides look finished because both of the eyelids are facing out, and I kind of enjoy that as well. So that's why I haven't looked for a longer one, because I'd rather do this. Like I said, because it has a finished look on both sides, especially if it's like a book cover. I enjoy the fact that it's finished on both sides. I distressed the edges a little bit. This is the inside covers. It's a scrapbook piece of paper. Look, I sprayed coffee water on this side, and it wrinkled it. It hasn't happened to me before, like really this bad. And I think it's just because it was like, I don't want to say cheap paper, but like thinner than usual on the scrapbook paper. I don't remember where I got it, but I just loved that it had flowers and that it was blue and was kind of matching my book. But it was it's not the best quality of paper, and I think that's why it wrinkled the way that it did. Usually it does, but when you heat it, bring the heat onto it, it strains it up, and in this case, it didn't. I have gathered a collection of books, art books. Um, some of these are my daughter's art books that, she made me buy her and didn't finish them, or she just didn't like them, or for whatever reason, she didn't want anymore, so she gave them to me. Others is that, she didn't want to move on that mediums anymore. So anyways, a lot of them come from her, and a lot of them come from like yard sales, garage sales that I see, an old art book, and I get it for $1 or $2, just because I know what I'm gonna do with them. I'm gonna chunk them, I'm gonna break them apart, I'm gonna, take them out, and so it does, so it won't hurt me as much. I don't buy them new. None of these I've bought new. Well, except the ones I bought for my daughter, but that's a different story. She gets everything new. Um, a lot of these were given to me too as well. So, like I said, some of these are for like art mediums, like mixed media, drawing, painting. But some of them are um, like books that I've bought that are for other purposes. And like I think two of them or three of them actually are scrapbooks. So they're not to paint on them or junk journal on them, but I like the material of the papers, and so I decided, when I got them, I decided that they were going to be part of the books that I take apart when I was going to be making my junk journals. And I use these pages not on all of my junk journals. Most of them have like regular copy paper that I have, like these right here are scrapbooks anyways, that I have done coffee water on them, and so that's what I mostly use. But because this is my journal that planning to do I'm planning to do art journaling again. I haven't done it in, I don't know, maybe a year or so, and I figured this is the year I wanted to start journaling again. I wanted to do a little bit of painting, a little bit of junk journaling, a little bit of art. I don't know, the sky's the limit. And so last year I decided I kind of wanted to try and do the journaling and the scrapbooking together in one journal. And it kind of, I kind of, I don't know. I wasn't too happy with, I felt like I was, scrapbooking, and my intention was to tell a story, and, or gather, or kind of like make sure I capture the moment. But it didn't feel, it's at times that I had like, you know, things that I want to preserve, that I didn't feel like they should go in a scrapbook. So I felt like I missed my junk journal. So um, that's why I'm doing it here. And I'm also, um, I wanted to do a mommy and a daddy set. So this is my junk journal, and I'm gonna make my scrapbook because I'm done with my other scrapbook. I'm gonna show you probably next week. I'm gonna do a flip of my scrapbook. Remember the big one? It's like 16 by like 30. I don't know. It's super ginormous book. And so I'm going to show you what my flip through of my scrapbook. And I want to make one that matches my junk journal. Right? Isn't that a great idea? I know. I was like, dude, they're going to match. And I was like, yep, that's what it is. Anyways, I'm doing without explaining. Um, by the time I was done, I made 9 sets of 3 papers each. Each of the sets, I stapled the middle of them. And just to make sure that I have the package, that they're not moving around, because I'm already gonna struggle doing, this whole setup. Okay, so remember that piece that I had, um, I started experimenting on? I'm gonna use that to bind. So what I did in the back, I marked where the spine of this paper would touch only the spine, and then on that I took off like 1/4 of an inch in more, so that I make sure I had the exact center of the spine from this material. So when I glued, or I mean I stapled all my signatures on there, it was not going to be off center. So those are my markings. And so what I'm doing here is, once I set up my first one and make sure that it's center, and it follows the lines that I drew on the back, the rest ones were going to be easy. Meaning, I know if I center them correctly, and what I'm doing is I'm clipping the half of the first signature, and then the continuous signature, so I can make sure that it's even to that next door signature. So when I'm stapling, the the next signature is exactly right next to the other one, because I don't want a gap in between my signatures. I want it to look like, it was a conventional journal, and one of those sewn on journals, and I don't want to really see the staples unless I'm in the middle of my signature. Do you know what I mean? So I want it to feel like a traditional sewn uh, book. And so, in order for me to do that, I need to make sure that my signatures are really tightly close to one another, before I staple them to the spine strip. What did I say? Yeah, the little strip that I'm stapling all my signatures onto. And if you do that right, they'll look all evenly, and they will be attached to the back, to the spine of the spine strip inside the book. Okay, once you've done that, this is how I'm going to attach my inner spine strip. That's what I'm calling it. It's not a name, but that's what it is. It's a description. But I'm going to glue the back flop of the strip of the spine to the book. So it's going to be directly glued on there. But because the whole thing that I'm doing this for is because I want to have the flexibility of moving things around. You guys know I probably have never, not never, I'm not going to say never, but I probably haven't done a book up to date that you can't change the signatures on. I think all of the journals that I've made are one way or another removable or changeable or replaceable on the spines. It's part of my, inability to, I don't know, commit, or I fear not having the ability of changing things. I don't know if it's a psychosis or something's wrong with me, but I have to have the ability to change things. Anyways, I am doing Velcro squares, and I did them on the directly spine and on the flop. So I have the ability of opening the spine and replacing any signature that I want. As you guys can tell, you guys can't tell that these are being held by staples, and this is how you replace them. This is how you hold them. What I'm doing, showing you here, is that I pull them out so you can see that it's stretched. Anyways, I hope you guys today's video. I hope it was interesting for you. Let me know what you think down below of making a junk journal of an old book, but making the old book at the same time. Thank you guys. Till next time, stay safe. Love you guys. Bye.